How Can People Live Happier Lives? By Skylar Schultz. Everyone wants to be happy. I think that I can say that with a good amount of confidence. Happiness and the seeking of it is something that binds all humans together. So why is it that so many people struggle to feel happy or satisfied in life? It could have to do with a mental illness such as depression, or it could simply be that the world has worn you down and nothing feels like it's going right. Regardless, I wanted my capstone project to be a deep dive into what makes people happy and how people can live happier lives. I firmly believe that this is possible for all people. For some it may be harder or easier, but in the end it is still possible to feel happy. Before I get into my research, I want to go over the differences between being happy and happiness. They might sound like they mean the same thing, but in this context they are quite different. In the Encyclopedia of Philosophy, L.W. Sumner states, "We often speak about being happy with or about something, where this roughly means regarding it favorably or having a positive attitude towards it. The object of such an attitude can, in principle, be anything, a state of oneself or a state of the world. We also speak about feeling happy, where this is an occurrent state of mind characteristically accompanied by energy, vitality, and buoyancy of spirit. Both of these notions need to be distinguished from that of being happy or having a happy life. When philosophers investigate the nature or value of happiness, it's this concept of a happy life that they have in mind. In essence, what he is saying is that there's a difference between having the emotion of happiness and having a lifelong happiness. For this project, I created a series of 3 different arguments as to what gives you a happy life. The first argument is that living a happy life is engaging in as many pleasurable activities and experiences as possible. When you're doing the things you enjoy or feel passionate about, you feel happy. By this logic, you should maximize the amount of things you do that make you happy or feel pleasure, and thus you will begin to lead a happy life. There is some merit to this idea, since someone who has never had any joyful experiences in their life will probably not be happy or live a happy life. The reasoning takes shape in the form of the philosophy of hedonism. While many associate hedonism solely with sexual activities, it doesn't necessarily have to be about carnal desires. Thrill seekers can be described as hedonistic because they constantly seek that thrill that makes them happy. When they aren't feeling that thrill, they aren't as happy. The Encyclopedia of Philosophy describes hedonism as the belief that happiness consists in pleasure in the absence of pain, or a surplus of pleasure over pain. On the simplest version of it, a person's hedonic state at a particular time is determined by the balance of agreeable and disagreeable feelings at that time. Happiness is then a matter of the longer-term tendencies of these hedonic balances. The greater and more enduring the balance of positive over negative states, the happier the person. However, there is criticism of the idea that having more pleasurable experiences in life over painful ones makes you live a happy life. The main criticism is that once you are not having joyful experiences anymore, you logically wouldn't be happy. But even people who live through many hardships are able to be happy and lead successful lives. One such critic of this theory is Sonia Carrara, the founder of Rivera Learning and Solutions, a company dedicated to helping others overcome their troubles and teaching them valuable skills for the business world, such as stress management. Carrara asserted that happiness, by her definition, is taking actions which serve our mind, body, and soul, and taking actions which are purposeful for her and others. Carrara went on to say that joy is a spectrum of happiness. Happiness is the equilibrium of mind, body, and soul, whilst joy is a part of it. Happiness is not spoken about much, and joy is only what the cause of happiness is. That last part is the most integral to me, that joy does not equal happiness. You can be full of joy when you're partying or gaming or doing whatever it is you enjoy doing. But if you're left desolate and in despair when not doing those activities, it wouldn't be right to say you are living a happy life. The second argument for what constitutes a happy life is that feeling content and satisfied with yourself and seeking out your goals in order to fulfill your desires is what brings you true happiness. After completing a project that you cared intensely about, or fulfilling your dreams or desires, you typically feel euphoric that it's finally done. Ambition and the drive to improve yourself is something that drives many people forward, even if they don't always succeed. Besides, pleasure seeking only brings short-term happiness, but fulfilling your lifelong dream is going to keep you happy for a long, long time. Of course, it's more than just succeeding at your goals. It's also about being content with what you have and accepting who you are. This philosophy of life satisfaction has many supporters among the philosophical community. L.W. Sumner, while remaining neutral, reasons that it seems plausible to think that how happy a person is must have something to do with how well that person thinks life is going, either as a whole or in important sectors, such as work, family, and health. Developing this line of thought has led philosophers and psychologists to develop a conception of happiness as life satisfaction. This conception is so subjective since it takes someone's happiness to be a matter of how the person thinks life is faring, given that person's interests and values. But it makes happiness more a matter of judgment than of feeling. In 2010, a nonprofit organization known as Pew Global Attitudes conducted a survey of people across the world in order to learn how happiness is affected by where you live and the economic state of where you live. The results show that people are generally happier in countries that have experienced stronger economic growth over the last 5 years compared with the previous 5 years. In these economically expanding countries, citizens are likely to be particularly satisfied with their incomes and more likely to say that they are making progress in their lives, conditions that led to higher levels of overall satisfaction with life. Inversely, people in stagnant economies were generally not as happy, because they still had huge problems with lack of resources and basic human needs. This can be shown in the data, which reports that while 2 in 3 Americans rank themselves relatively happy with their lives, and 7 in 10 Canadians are similarly satisfied, by comparison, only 1 in 6 Kenyans are happy. Despite this, there is criticism of the idea that having satisfaction with your life is the reason why people can live happy lives. For many people, their lives are going just fine, yet they are still not happy. And on the other hand, people's lives can be full of hardships, and they may have no chance of fulfilling their greatest goals, but they can still find happiness in it all. This is even reflected in the Pew survey just mentioned. Ruth Stokes, author of the article, states, comparing scores in self-reported life satisfaction can be deceptive. For example, an overwhelming majority of Americans, 65%, seem satisfied with their lives in the Pew survey, as do an even larger proportion of Mexicans, 76%. But per capita income in the United States is almost 4 times greater than that in Mexico. Similarly, per capita income in Nigeria is roughly half that in Bangladesh, but Nigerians are twice as likely to be very happy with their lives as Bangladeshis. Clearly, satisfaction with life is determined by more than income. Additionally, the idea of personal progress in achieving your goals is brought up in the survey, and was one of the things they asked. It was found that in Africa, there appears to be very little relationship between personal happiness and the people's sense of personal progress. Kenyans report a strong increase in their position on the ladder of life, yet the proportions of Kenyans who are very satisfied with their lives was essentially unchanged. There's a similar, if less dramatic, improvement in South Africans' sense of their progress, but there has been no real change in how satisfied they are with their lives. I feel that this very well illustrates my point here, that even though fulfilling your goals and being content with your life can help you feel happier and lead you to live a happy life, isn't the case for everybody, and it clearly isn't the sole factor for people feeling happier. So what's the solution here? What gives people a happy life? If it isn't experiencing as many positive emotions and events as possible, and isn't doing everything you set out to do and being satisfied with what you have, then what is it that makes you happy? What if I told you that it was not one or the other, but both at the same time? Think about it. Well, it's important to value what you have and chase your dreams. If you never had any experiences in life that made you happy, then it wouldn't be correct to say you were living a happy life. On the other hand, while someone could be happy in the moment doing the things they enjoyed, they may not be happy when they aren't doing those things, and seeking out pleasure as a form of escape from sadness isn't what happiness is about. This is supported in the research of L.W. Sumner. When discussing the 2 main arguments for what gives people a happy life, he says that each seems to capture a dimension of the phenomenon that eludes the other. On the one hand, we would be reluctant to call anyone happy whose dominant state of mind tended towards the doomy, dejected, and depressed. On the other hand, we would be similarly reluctant if the subject were to report that in every important sector, life was failing to measure up to aspirations and expectations for it. Perhaps then, the best theory of nature of happiness will be a hybrid that takes both dimensions into account, looking for a preponderance of a positive effect over time, together with an endorsement of the conditions of one's life. Such a theory will not yield a determinate result if these dimensions can come apart, as both seems both logically and psychologically possible. But in that case, the right response might be to question whether our common notion of happiness is internally unified, or whether it looks to both of these factors. If the latter is the case, then the hybrid theory might just be the best fit for it. Thank you so much for listening to my comment conversation, and I hope that all of you can find happiness in your lives as well.